guys, welcome back to the channel. John here. It's time to start building our dreams, and that's truly what we've been doing with Project Rampage. Today's video is brought to you in part by Auxbeam. Auxbeam is a product that I've used for a couple of years now. On my white Jeep, I installed an 8-gang controller. Auxbeam has a lot of options, but I really like the 8-gang because I think it gives you a lot of room to grow, whether that's adding air lockers at a later time, air compressors, weboost, sat dishes, all the electrical lighting, auxiliary lighting you could want. The Auxbeam controllers are really a great way to keep your engine bay clean and have, really changed how wiring is done aftermarket. Pretty much everybody in the overland community, there's no more running wires through the dash and having little kick panels with rocker switches and all that. So this has the same 8-button function that my other controller has. It's an aluminum case, it's sealed, it's got, water resistant connectors on it, and, it's got all on, all off. So if you, have 3 sets of lights on and you want to turn them all on at the same time, you can do that. It memorizes whatever was pushed last, and you can hit all on or all off. This one, it's a little bit different box than what's under the hood. This is more for like a house battery, and that's exactly what I'm going to use this one for. So as I decide I want to wire up anything new, like if I get a light up awning in the future, or if I want to add some additional lights in the cab, if you had a fridge that you wanted to power off and on, you could do that. I think a fridge you should pretty much leave plugged up all the time and running off your house battery if you do it that way. But this is a great distribution panel. Again, I think the 8-gang is about right. It allows you to grow. So if you buy a stock Jeep and then say you want to go to air lockers, you want to hardwire a compressor, whatever you want to do, this allows you for that growth while you own your Jeep. And inside, there's different fuses from 5 to 20 to 30 amp fuses in here. So depending on what you want to run, you can run it. This one's kind of heavy duty. Again, this is a 12 to 24 volt system. It tells you all the ratings on there. It's good down to about minus 40 Celsius to positive 105 Celsius. So water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. That's pretty extreme temperatures. Again, this one's got a hard metal case. I've been pretty happy with Auxbeam products. I pick almost any headlight I wanted, and I actually chose these because they're the most factory looking headlight you can find. As you can see, they look a lot like the Mopars. Slight differences. My other set of headlights didn't have the internal adjustments, which I think should be standard on any headlight you buy. You should be able to adjust up, down, and just bolt right into the factory. And so I think Auxbeam's been listening to a lot of customer feedback. They want something that's factory, they want it sealed, and this one even has a cooling motor on the back so that the LEDs and all the electronics don't get too hot. Everything's sealed, it's got some breathers, and then you've got your up-down adjustment here, just like you would on your factories, but this one's in the middle back of the headlight, and that way you can adjust your beam up and down. Fuse 52 for your cigarette lighter, so even if you don't have an Auxbeam controller, you could tap into that, and your headlights will run as long as your cigarette lighter is hot. So I'll give you a quick demonstration of the daytime running lights. So again, there's 2 methods of wiring these. One, you can run it to an Auxbeam controller to control your DRLs, or you can use this fuse tap to run into the number 52 fuse. So what the fuse tap does, and these are the micro fuses, your primary fuse will go into here, so you'll pull the F52, you'll put it in the bottom, and then your auxiliary power fuse will go to the top. So, and just to show you what the DRLs look like on this, they're actually pretty good. The halos light up and the backlights come on, so that's what they're going to look like. So that's just a little demonstration. So off, on, off, on. And so we'll go out there and we'll actually install these in the Jeep. I just wanted to share that with you because that was something I had to go look up. What exactly came on. I didn't know if it was your brights, your low beams, or just your DRLs, and it's actually just your daytime running light and your halo. So again, we got a negative and positive here. Once you get power to them, your daytime running lights will come on. So that being said, let's go tear apart the Jeep and get these headlights installed. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to pop the hood here. Just your 2 hood latches, pull those off. And this Auxbeam hoodie's got a pretty cool logo on the backside. Open this up, grab our prop, and put it up there. There's an Auxbeam controller. It's just got a little latch on it right here. You just push that in, lift off, and then you've got all of your fusible links there to run everything. Positive wire, it goes through a fusible link to the battery. Your negative goes to ground on your ground terminal of your battery. And then you've got all these options here. This is an 8-gang, so you'll see 8 fuses here. They also give you a few spares and a fuse puller inside the box. There's 2 different types. Again, I showed you inside. There's clear type for more of a house battery setup. This one is more of the weather resistant type. For this, I actually just used one of the fender bolts here, bolted this bracket on, and it sits right next to the fuse box. All this other mess, this is for rock lights, and don't necessarily like it, but for the rock lights, you've got a big loom there. Back to the Auxbeam. This is your power on wire. So this tells the Auxbeam controller when you've got the accessory switch on or it's in the run position, or if you tap into always hot, your panel inside is always going to glow. So it's a good idea to have everything shut off when your battery's off, because you know you may fly somewhere and leave your car at the airport for a week and you don't want your battery to be dead. This is your controller here. These 4 wires go up to your push button display, and that I'll show you where that's located on the inside. But for mounting, I used the L bracket that came in the kit, same one I had on the white Jeep, and then I just used this one fender bolt right here. It kind of just sits there, but it allows me to push it out of the way if I need to get into the fuse box. So that's where I've got that mounted, in case you get any questions. Again, I don't have a bracket that is for the JT, so I don't have a bracket that goes to both of these. However, you could probably get a bracket made if you really wanted to for the Auxbeam controller. Well, let's go inside real quick and I'll show you the Auxbeam controller itself. And so typically you route your wires from there across the front of the vehicle, and then you come over here. This pulls off with 4 bolts. If you don't have a snorkel here, that would come off. For me, I've got an extra step. I got to take the snorkel loose up top. And then inside the cab, there's 2 10 millimeters. These simply just pop up, and there's a bolt inside of there. And you pull these 2 bolts loose and you can get in there in behind this panel. For the controller itself, up here, it comes on when the ignition's on. So once you turn it to accessory and then to run, it'll light up. You see it turn blue when I turned it on. That's for my weboost. These are front headlights, backup lights, rock lights, rack. The great thing again about the 8-gang switch is you can grow as you go. So you know, if you want air lockers, air compressor, whatever. And then there's 2 little screws underneath here that just you drill into the plastic. It just kind of hangs right there. If you ever need to tighten this up, you can. And then I installed it far enough back to where I can still use my visor. So that's a little bit about how I installed the Auxbeam controller and where it's located on my Jeep. Some people will mount them down on the kick panel. Some people will mount them on the other side where your towing brake typically goes. But that's an overview of the Auxbeam controller. And the other cool thing about it is if you want to run all your lights, you can use the on-off switch in the middle, and it turns everything off, and it memorizes where your last position is. So if I wanted to do that in the backup lights, now it remembers that one. So pretty cool little function with the Auxbeam controller, and you don't get that big rat's nest underneath the vehicle. All right, to pull off your front grille here, you got this clip, you got this clip here, you got a clip here, a clip here, clip here, and a clip here. So once you pull those 6 off, your grille literally just pops off. And if it comes apart, it comes apart. But all you gotta do is line it back up, put it back together, and it's ready for reinstalling at a later time. But keep up with your hardware. So we pulled the 2 next to Headlight. All right, that's that. All right guys, so once you get those 6 plugs out, it's real easy to pull off your grille. So you're just gonna grab at your corners and pull. It's gonna pop. And then down at the bottom, I've got this paint stick here, and I just run that down through the middle to try and get between the grille and the connectors. Now we can take the old grille out. So we got all 3 headlights here. So these are the factory headlights. These are halogen. You can get replacement bulbs for these if you wanted to. You just basically take that back off and you can replace a halogen bulb that's down inside of there. What a lot of people opt to do, this is a 9-inch headlight. As you can see, it's got a heat sink on the back. Again, it's got a 3-wire system, goes in your factory plug, and then this is your turn signal and your running light. And then this is our new Auxbeam headlight here. And so it's got all the same features as the factory headlight. This one got dirty from being on my table. Under here you've got your adjuster screw, you got a couple of vents, you got your wiring harness, and then you got a cooling fan in there. And to mount your headlights, you're going to reuse the factory hardware. And so this is a stock 10mm black hardware. Remove your factory headlight. All you're going to do is take your 10mm on the 3 corners and remove those. And you're going to reuse this hardware. On the back, all you have to do, it's got the 2 tabs up here to align everything. You're just going to push down on your clip and pull it out, and that's how easy it is to replace these headlights. For new headlights, they come with the wiring harness here, this add-in circuit. So the short one is going to go on this side because that's the side your battery's on, and so we'll just pull this back and through for now. We'll tie into this, and then we're going to route this wire over to the other side. Now to route this to the other side, you got this standalone cable. The short end is going to go to this side, and then the long end will go get routed to the other side. For this, we'll probably just come up along the front top. Once you pull your grill off, you should be able to get under here. Run it along where your horns are at the front, and then we'll run it down and plug into the back of the other side. Alright guys, so here on the back end we got our factory plug. So we're just going to take our cable here, plug it up to the factory connector, make sure it clicks, and it clicked. And then our other plug is going to come back here, and we are going to just set that kind of out to the side while we set this into place. There's a tab at the bottom, so you're going to line this tab, you're going to line this top tab, and then the third one is just going to fold over. Start your bolts by hand. It'll squeeze in some as you run them down. Take our cover off. Alright, so that light is now in place. The only other thing we got to do is hook up the running light to our harness here. If you look closely at the connector, it has a V-notch in it. You're going to line that V-notch up with the V-notch that is on this connector here. So you're going to line those 2 V-notches. So once you line up that V-notch, careful not to bend your pins, run it together, and then tying your connector by hand, and that should give you a good weather resistant seal. And then you'll zip tie all this stuff up out of the way. Just for comparison purposes, we're going to put the factory one back in on this side, and we'll do a comparison between the new ones and these. And so we're going to do another comparison. We got a factory headlight on the left side, the halogen bulbs versus the right side with the new LEDs. And so we'll do a little side by side for you. Headlights on, high beams, low beams, high beams, low beams. As you can tell, the right is just much more intense. The dull amber color, I don't know which one you'd rather drive with at night, but I'd definitely rather be driving with the ones on the right. Since most of you watched my video before you went out there and bought a brand new set of lights, I'm going to show you how to take the factory out and then replace it with the new lights from Auxbeam. So all we're going to do is take our 10mm wrench, take these loose, and yes, you can do these by hand when you got power tools. you can use power tools. So take your bolts loose. On the back side here, you have the factory connector. You're just going to push down on the tip, and then the whole factory connector will come right out. And then you can save these in case you ever run into headlight issues like I did. Alright, for our add-on circuit, we're just going to come down and behind the headlight, connect this up. Again, making sure our V's match up so you don't bend anything. Line up your V's, push them together, and you're going to want to get this hand tight so that it compresses that O-ring that's in there. If you see the O-ring here, you want to compress that down so you get a good weather resistant seal on it. And then you'll come back and you'll zip tie all that stuff up out of the way. Headlight, again, super easy. Just going to lift it in place. Try to keep the wires out of the way from anything that's going to be hot. I'm going to line up this top tab, line up the bottom tab, and you'll line up your side over here. So top tab, bottom tab, and you can start with whichever one you want to start with. Start hand tight, and the other reason, you know, I got the plastic on these still because hands are dirty. Everything's good, tight, not going to work loose. You can take your plastic off. Guys, if you stuck with me this long, last thing we're going to do is we're going to tie this off to a wiring harness so we don't have any issues with cables rubbing or anything else. So just get you a handful of wire ties. I don't know if they come with a kit or not, but head to your local Tractor Supply, Harbor Freight, AutoZone, and pick you up some small electrical wire ties. Trying to tuck it inside the horn because the horn has a heat shielding on it. Horn wiring harness is here. We'll just put in one every 10 to 12 inches, 6 inches, 8 inches, whatever you feel comfortable with. Here, the horn harness ends there, so we're going to come up and over, and then we'll wire tie it off here to this harness behind the headlight. So you've got two options with your daytime running lights. You can use your Auxbeam controller and you can turn on and off your daytime running lights, which is actually what we're going to do. Or you can tap into the F52 fuse inside the fuse box. So some of you may be like, what's the difference in running it to the Auxbeam controller versus running it to the F52 switch? When we did the test in the studio with the 9-volt battery, we saw that the ADA circuit just powers the DRL when it's connected. They don't run the DRL when the headlights are on by themselves. So if you always want your DRLs on, run it to your F52. If you ever think you're going to shut them off, you can run it to your Auxbeam controller, but that is going to eat up a port. So it's a personal decision. They give you that option. The thing I like is I want to be able to completely go blackout with these. When I was parking at Overland Expo East, I was blinding the guy that was trying to help me park, and so that's not a good way to build relationships with your sponsors, is by blinding them. But with that being said, we're going to run it to the Auxbeam controller and wrap up this part of it, and then we'll go through the Grille install process if you guys want to stick around and see that. So I pulled some of this rat nest I've got going on with the rock lights out of the way, just so I can show you kind of the Auxbeam controller and where it's set up at. We're going to take our 10mm wrench. There's a fender bolt over here that we're going to take loose. So we're going to pull this fender bolt loose. It is painted, so you kind of want to be a little careful with it. And what that does is allow us to move our Auxbeam controller out of the way to get to our fuse box. Now the way I've got this set up, that can be a pain, but basically you just get to your fuse box here, and I'll show you what we got going on inside the fuse box. So I've actually tapped into the F52 already, which is a house battery in the back. And F52 is your 12-volt USB, where your power always comes on when the ignition's on. And so that's for the smart charger for my Renogy system. I'm not going to tap in there. I'm going to run this off the Auxbeam. But same concept applies. All you would do is you would run the red wire to one of these fuse taps. So it would go in here, you would crimp it, you would put your fuse that you actually want to use with the device that you get. So the fuse on the bottom is a factory replaced fuse, so that runs to whatever power is on the car, and then the top one is the one for the accessory. So you would just run this to the fuse port here, F52, and then you would run this to ground, tie up your battery. You could bolt it to, you know, one of these fender bolts if you didn't have an Auxbeam controller, and then seal it up. In our case, we are going to take and run both of these to the Auxbeam. We're just going to snip them off, strip them, run them to the Auxbeam controller. But I at least wanted to show you guys, you know, what the fuse looks like. And again, front to back on the EcoDiesel, it's right here. The gas one's going to be a little bit different because the fuse box is in the back versus right here. But that's just for your situational awareness on, you know, navigating the fuse box. And it's great because Jeep puts that diagram on there so you can see the fuse box itself. Put your cover on, make sure it clicks into both sides, and now it's back to being water resistant. On the side of the Auxbeam controller, you can ignore these amps because you can move those around. 30 amp being like your big lights and stuff, all the way down to 5 amp. As you can see, I used a couple of items that needed 10 amps, so I ran those down here. And then for the 5 amps, I just kind of move those up. So we'll run this up here to a 5 amp fuse. So a few other tools you need with Auxbeam, I use this little bitty Phillips. I think it's like a Phillips 0 or P 0 times 3 inch. So this is a P0, and what that does is it lets you loosen these up. You loosen them all the way, you stick your wire in, then you tighten it down. And then to trim our wires, you're going to need a wire tool. You can either use one of these or the yellow type. But we're just going to kind of cut these off even with our side cutters here, and then we'll strip them. Alright, so we are not using the fusible link on this one anymore. These wires are really small gauge size, so it's always better to strip a little bit bigger. So we'll start trying with 16. 16 is not quite small enough, so we'll move up to 18 gauge. Give it a little twist. No, not quite. What you don't want to do is cut your wire itself. So here we're using our 20 gauge. Pull that off. 20 gauge again. You don't want too much excess. So there we go. And these are copper wires, so that's good. A lot of companies these days are using aluminum. Copper's better. Alright, so all we do from here, we get this wire out of the way, run it underneath everything else we've run. For the Auxbeam controller, it's got a couple of holes in here, so you can kind of just lift it up out of the way. And then we'll pull the excess back down and through when we're done. Here, I'll take this loose the rest of the way just so you guys can see. I don't want to scrape up my Jeep too bad. But once you get this through, as you can see, I've got a lot of wires in here, and it's got a positive and a negative, and so we're going to go to the next positive and next negative circuit that's open, which is going to be this third one. So 2, 4, 6 right here. And again, our ignition's off, so this the way we've got our Auxbeam is it's not always hot. If it was always hot, you'd want to disconnect it from the battery. Ours is only hot when it's when the Jeep itself is powered on. That one's tight, so we want to take this one here loose. We want to take this one here loose. So again, red is going to go into where the red positive is. Just going to crank that down. And what it does is it's got like a little half moon shape in there, and just kind of bottoms out and crushes the wire. You want to give it a little tug, make sure it's not going to come loose. Same thing with your negative wire. And if you don't have an Auxbeam controller, I'd highly recommend you guys get one. Let's wire those in. It's good anytime you're in here, just make sure your wires are tight. Okay, and we can take and pull that back down and pull that one back down too. So you kind of just, that's how the Auxbeam controller works. You just kind of pull your excess out. Like such, and then you're good to go. Yeah, so I'm going to turn on the lights. You can hear a little bit of dinging in the background. Auxbeam controller turned on. So that's a halo itself. Turn on the headlights. So here's the parking lights. There's the full lights. Turn off the daytime running lights. Daytime running lights on. DRLs off. DRLs on. Headlights on. Brights. Low beam. Brights. Low beam. And those are really bright, so that's good. DRLs on if you want to just creep around the campsite. DRLs off so you can be blacked out and you're not blinding folks. So, I like it. Alright guys, so here's our Auxbeam controller here, and you may not be able to see it from there. Right now we've got this one labeled front. This one here is the one for the driving lights. So we click that and the driving lights turn on. And so what I got is a couple of picks. And with Auxbeam, you know, you can use this for all kinds of things. They got light bars, cubes, roof, front, cargo, beep for a horn, windshield, whip. They even have camera, fish box. I mean, DRL, so we'll use the DRL here for the daytime running lights, and we'll put that sticker right here. So all we got to do is take the old sticker off, and you want to do this carefully, but having a pick is handy, so you don't want to damage the button itself, but you do want to pull the pad off and replace it with a sticker there that says DRL. So that's our daytime running lights right there now. Just put your sticker on. Then your blackout plate, if you want to save some of these, you can just stick it down here and you can save it. So now we've got our daytime running lights marked, so when our power comes on here, it lights up. Daytime running lights are on, and then daytime running lights off, daytime running lights on, and so that's how we do that, guys. So we looked out, we got a 5 amp fuse in there, that's all we required. So I'm just going to police this up. We're going to snip off all of our ends and put this thing back together. Snip off all of our cable ties, wire ties, whatever you want to call them, so that they're out of the way. Try to cut them off flat so they don't cut anybody. Just push down. That's good to go. The diesel does that. It kind of whines for a few minutes every time you do something. So you're just going to kind of run all these cables and stuff back behind this these stands, legs. For the rock lights, I'm not done with rock lights. We got more rock lights to do eventually. Move those out of the way there. They're kind of out of the way. Put our colored 10 mil back in here. Run that back down. And now if you do your plate like this, you do want to make sure it's over far enough so you don't damage your hood when you close it. Alright, that's all up out of the way. All these wires are out of the way. And depending on your Jeep and how big of a rat's nest you got underneath, depends on how much you're going to have to do. And then we're going to take our Auxbeam controller box top and make sure all of our wires are out of the way. Tuck You're going to kind of tuck those up inside. As you can see, this one's quite a few years old. And it's just going to do like that, and it's going to keep the dust out. Stickers, when you get it new, it's going to be like that, but I've had this one for over 3 years now. And so, yeah, it's haven't had any issues with it, knock on wood. So that's why I decided to partner with Auxbeam for this video. Alright guys, I know some of you, this is a big controversy on the Grille, but we are actually going to use, this is from Distinction Applied. This was a show special they had at the Great Smoky Mountain Jeep Invasion. They'll probably do it again at Jeep Beach. But this is a 2024 and up, or in our case, 2025 Grille. And so we're going to use this Grille on the Jeep. I already put this one together at Great Smoky Mountain Jeep Invasion. I just haven't had an opportunity to install it. And since I was doing the headlights, I figured I would do this as well. So basically this Grille looks just like the other one. Now you can get these painted. I kind of like it. The only accent you've got is like the Rubicon highlights here. And we're going to use this on the Jeep Gladiator because it does flow more air than the old green style, than the green one that we had on here. So trying to just move everything into place. And there's a couple of other pieces we'll have to take off the other Grille. Down here where the wires are, it's a little tight. Now all we gotta do is put in our 6 little clips, and we'll come back with our foam pieces from the other Grille and we'll put those in. So we get those two, get our 2 in the middle. And our headlight ones here. All right, guys, I'm liking that. I'm liking that. So now we've got a 2025 Jeep EcoDiesel. That's super sweet. All right, guys, so the last couple of things we got to do is we've got a couple of rivets we got to put in here. So take a rivet gun and put those rivets in, and we'll be cooking with Crisco here. Now if you were to, you can get these painted and they'll arrive at your doorstep to be put together. For the most part, it's a pretty easy assembly. Just double check. We maybe have a couple extra rivets, but those may go on the bottom side or something, but I think we'll be fine. Our rubber piece right here in. Alright guys, now all we're doing is run our cable back into the cab. I said I didn't want to run it through the Grille, but I always end up running it through the Grille. It just looks cleaner that way. One of these days we'll install our forward-facing camera, which is the other thing I meant to do when we did this. Alright guys, so we got the install done on the Auxbeam lights, and we're going to take it for a test drive once it gets a little bit darker and give you guys some awesome footage. So again, we had the halogen lights initially, we had some other LEDs, and then we got the Auxbeams, and these are pretty cool. I'll put a model number and everything down in the description. If you want to check them out, head over to Auxbeam.com. You can get them on Amazon for a quick shipment. Make sure you buy them from the Auxbeam store, and then always check us out over on Instagram. There's the DRLs, not a whole lot of headlight. It's kind of dark out there still. There's the regular lights. High beam, low beam, high beam. And if we turn our rack And our bumper lights. Let's switch over here. You'll see lights up behind us. So plenty of light out here. And the Auxbeams really do a good job. So that's the regular headlights without everything else. That's everything else. So definitely like daylight when you drive around outside in the Gladiator. Oh, I forgot the rock lights too. But the headlights, huge improvement. You can see a little bit maybe of the high beams up there. Again, rack light off. Front lights are still on. But even with just the headlights, I feel much more confident out here driving in the woods. You can see with the drone footage how much better it is too. Front lights do pretty good. Rack lights really light everything up, so. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you would, smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, ring the bell so you get the notifications and keep coming back for more. Once again, you guys get to come along for the ride. I get to share my dream with you, but the true purpose of this channel is to help motivate, inform, and inspire you so you can get out there and start building your dreams.